All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild. We're bridging the massive gap between high-stakes international trade disputes, the headline-grabbing stuff, and a looming regional waste management crisis. It's actually a fascinating journey that proves how massive geopolitical gridlock can actually be solved with hyper-local, edge AI technology. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the US-Canada trade war, move into Ontario's vulnerable waste corridor, look at 905 Wood, the digital refinery, explore how edge AI is sifting the chaos, and finally wrap up with bridging to circular bioeconomies. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The US-Canada trade war. Okay, so look at how fast the structural market conditions are deteriorating under the USMCA, or CUSMA, depending on where you live framework. I mean, year-to-date headlines have been absolutely chaotic. In early 2025, President Donald Trump announces these sweeping 50% tariffs on Canadian autos, alcohol, and dairy. Boom. The blowback from that Washington move? Immediate. Ontario Premier Doug Ford refuses to lift the ban on U.S. alcohol in provincial LCBO stores. And, on top of that, slaps a 25% surcharge on energy exports going to the United States. And you can really feel the economic stakes of this tit-for-tat retaliation. When leaders in Washington and Ontario start throwing around phrases like utilizing every tool in the toolbox to make the other side feel the pain, it means literally every single cross-border commodity and supply chain is suddenly at risk. We're talking major collateral damage. Moving right along to Section 2, Ontario's vulnerable waste corridor. So while the politicians are busy arguing over cars and cheese, there's this massive vulnerability just flying completely under the radar. And it's garbage, literally trash. Get this, in 2024 alone, Ontario disposed of 12.75 million tons of waste. But here is the kicker. Nearly 30% of it quietly crossed the border into the United States. To put that into perspective, the sheer volume of this transboundary waste trade nexus is just staggering. Michigan alone imports 3.46 million tons of municipal solid waste, or MSW, from Ontario every single year. Let that sink in. That means Ontario's trash makes up 14.35% of all the waste buried in Michigan landfills. If these new tariffs or border closures shut this corridor down, millions of tons of trash suddenly have absolutely nowhere to go. And compounding this border vulnerability is Ontario's own looming waste cliff. Domestic regulations are tightening, and fast. Municipal commercial waste exits the system in 2026. A rewood landfill ban on clean wood hits by 2029, and we are looking at total domestic landfill exhaustion by 2034. Oh, and by 2036, a highly punitive circle levy shoots up to $60 per ton. So for local industries, the pressure is just crushing them from both sides of the border at the exact same time. All right, Section 3, 905 Wood, the digital refinery. So how in the world do industries survive the squeeze? Well, they have to stop looking at waste as, just garbage and start treating it as verifiable data. The financial pain point here is super stark. If you haul chaotic, mixed waste to a landfill, you're hit with that massive $60 per ton circle levy. But, and this is a big but, if you can mathematically and legally prove you're only hauling clean wood, that levy plummets to just $5 a ton. And that spread? That translates to exactly $1,034 in regulatory savings on every single 19.15-ton mothership load. For a logistics fleet, we're talking about millions of dollars in avoided fees every year. It's a real game changer. The million-dollar catch, though? You have to prove to inspectors that the wood is perfectly clean before it ever gets loaded onto a truck. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, Edge AI sifting the chaos. This is where Silicon Valley intelligence actually meets the dirty reality of a construction site. 905 Wood operationalizes waste sorting right at the bin using a digital refinery application workflow. First up, AI intake happens directly at the source. Then, Edge AI classifies the material, making sure absolutely no treated or painted wood slips through. Finally, it passes a compliance gate for a verified output. Basically, it takes human guesswork entirely out of the equation. The intake shield technology powering this UI/UX workflow is honestly incredible. It uses the new Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16 and a light art AI stack to deliver instantaneous industrial-grade material classification. Because it's packing that 3nm Tensor G5 silicon and running the Gemma 4 E2B AI model, it doesn't have to wait around for some slow cloud server. Nope, it classifies materials in under 500 milliseconds right at the gate. And if it's ever
kind of unsure, a visual fallacy guard kicks in, demanding dual model consensus.
And the output of that AI stack? That's exactly what legally shields a supply chain from all that transboundary border friction we talked about earlier. The digital refinery application automatically generates vital PDF documentation on the spot, structured requests for quote, OREG 347 complaints readouts, and signed certificates of origin. So if a U.S. customs agent or an Ontario ministry inspector stops a load, the system has already cryptographically verified its purity. It is literally the ultimate data shield.
Let's bring it all together in Section 5, Bridging to Circular Bioeconomies.
Ultimately, 905 wood acts as what they call a sentient bridge. It's this intelligent logistics layer that connects chaotic construction waste directly to the strict, high-purity requirements of the pyrogenic biocarbon market. By operationalizing the Google Pixel 10 Pro and locking in the absolute purity of the wood through Edge AI, they aren't just avoiding those vulnerable Michigan landfills. They are actually creating highly sought-after feedstock for carbon-negative materials. This perfectly secures Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. When you look at their quarterly performance breakdown, it proves exactly how AI verification turns a regulatory nightmare into a straight-up carbon dividend asset. Just look at the math. The base cost is offset by locking in that low $5 levy. But wait, it goes further. It generates actual carbon dividends, or corks, worth hundreds of dollars per load. It's just an incredibly elegant economic model that actually thrives by solving a massive compliance headache.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. As international borders tighten and tariffs continue to rise, could hyperlocal Edge AI actually be our most robust defense for supply chain sovereignty? I mean, while Washington and Ottawa negotiate over tariffs, smart hardware is already on the ground, quietly rerouting millions of tons of material away from vulnerable borders and into a sustainable, localized bioeconomy. Thank you so much for joining me today, and definitely keep your eyes on how intelligence at the edge continues to reshape our physical world. Catch you next time.